"So, what kind of trouble do I need to help you out of this time?" Luke asked, handing his friend a plate of warm homemade food. "Mashed potatoes," Nathan exclaimed cheerfully. "Oh, again," his friend groaned, feigning disgust. "Indeed," Nathan answered. "We ate these horrible wings just last week." "How many more times?" This is exactly the question I asked my wife, but she refuses to listen. Luke exclaimed, "Okay, let's get down to business." Chapter 1. Jack, their new colleague, observed his new acquaintances with bewilderment, struggling to comprehend why Nathan despised home-cooked meals. Luke took pity on him and decided to explain. "You see, Nathan has grown weary of all sorts of unappetizing fare, like fast food, pizza, and pastries, so his wife prepares a separate meal for him each day while I step in to help. No food should go to waste. He consumes his own creations, and I enjoy the deliciousness his wife makes. Why is she such a bad cook?" Jack asked, taking a sandwich out of the microwave. "No, she cooks just fine. It's just that Nathan doesn't always like these soups and meat dishes in French," Luke replied with a smile, opening a container of food for his friend. "That's why I'm reaching out like a real brother." "Wouldn't it be simpler to tell your missus to take a break from cooking? She'd surely appreciate it," Jack suggested. "Yeah, Nathan gave it a shot, but she just won't have it." "And you don't mind playing guinea pig? Why let the tasty stuff go to waste? Indeed, if my wife packed me lunch, I wouldn't let a single morsel go to anyone else," Jack said wistfully as he chomped on his sandwich. "So, what's stopping you? Get hitched." "I haven't found my other half yet." "Well, don't fret, you'll stumble upon her eventually," Luke reassured, giving him a friendly shoulder pat. "New to our town, right? We've got no shortage of beautiful gals." The guys wrapped up lunch and got back to their grind. They all clocked in at the same furniture company, but handled different roles. Nathan helmed the sales department, Luke was the assembly guy, and Jack had recently signed on in the warehousing. Turns out, Jack had a prophetic streak. That very evening, he bumped into a stunning lady, maybe in her early 30s, possibly younger. In the supermarket, she was struggling to snag a package of some peculiar pasta from the top shelf. She was petite, a whisker over 5 feet tall, but utterly adorable. "May I be of assistance?" Jack asked with a chivalrous tilt of his head. His stature, well above the norm, allowed him the easy reach of the highest shelves. "I would appreciate that immensely," exclaimed the intriguing woman, a smile lighting up her face. Oh, that smile! The moment it graced her lips, Jack felt his heart take flight. Present and past, future and now, all swirled into a delightful haze. He yearned to freeze time, to linger in the glow of her smile forever. Yet, as she swiftly scooped up a package of pasta, she moved off to seek other groceries. Springing into action, Jack hurried after her. "What's on the menu?" he inquired casually, as if merely continuing an earlier conversation. "Oh, I decided to cook lasagna for my husband today. He's already had enough of my wings," she replied with a carefree laugh. "By the way, the name's Jack." He introduced himself with ease. "And you are?" "I'm Penelope, just Penelope will do," she replied warmly. Jack, who had been thoroughly engrossed in a discussion with colleagues over lunch, found that memory now eclipsed by her presence. "Oh, really working hard, aren't you? Dashing to the store by yourself?" He quipped genially. "What's that now? Is there something wrong in doting on my dear husband?" she retorted with a playful arch of her brow. "Well, I stumbled upon an amusing tale today, and now I'm torn whether it's a cautionary one or a badge of honor." She was curious as she asked, "What is the sensation?" "Well, I know a guy who treats his closest friend's wife to delicious dishes, but he does not refuse cheap noodles and all other rubbish. Can you imagine such audacity? And to top it all off, he's pumped up with heartburn pills. This is beyond comprehension. He sounds like an oddball." If I ever encountered such a character, I'd give him a piece of my mind," Penelope retorted, seemingly offended by the other woman's tale. "You're absolutely right. If Nathan's wife found out about this, he'd be in hot water too." Jack chimed in, showing his support. "Nathan?" she queried, her surprise evident. "May I ask where you are employed? I'm fairly new to this city and haven't yet made acquaintances." "I've landed a job as a loader at a furniture factory on the left bank," she revealed. Upon hearing this revelation, Penelope abruptly stopped and fixed her gaze upon her newfound acquaintance. Her face contorted with anger, turning pale as though drained of blood. In her mind, she connected the dots. Her own husband had been plagued by heartburn lately, and his name was indeed Nathan. The coincidence was too glaring to ignore. "That despicable scoundrel," she exclaimed indignantly. It was then that Jack realized his blunder. How could he have known that the stunning stranger was the spouse of his colleague? "Oh dear," he uttered guiltily, scrambling to find an excuse for his misstep. With mounting anger, Penelope abandoned her cart and headed for the exit, muttering to herself, "What a nasty bastard. Let him eat lasagna. I mean, I'm trying my best, but what is he doing?" Jack dropped his purchases and sprinted after her. He finally caught up with her just as she was unlatching the car door. "Can't let you drive in this state," he declared firmly. "Simone, I'll treat you to a cup of joe. Once you calm down, you can head wherever you were headed." "No chance," she insisted, but Jack was relentless. "Most accidents happen when folks are in this kind of state. You wanna live, don't ya?" At last, Penelope truly heard him. She glanced at her quivering hands, consumed by anger, and realized she needed to compose herself. She made the decision to accept the kind offer of coffee from her newfound companion. They entered a little cafe nestled within the same supermarket. Jack ordered them a steaming cup of coffee, along with a due of delectable pastries. What better way to pacify an infuriated woman than with something sweet? He couldn't think of a more effective method. To his astonishment, it worked like a charm. Penelope nibbled on the cake and gradually regained her composure, though the grudge still lingered within her. "Unbelievable. I can't stand this Nathan. What an impudence he has. Can you believe I worked my ass off for him? Any idea how long this has been going on? To be honest, I have no idea. I'm sorry for giving away someone else's secret. Please don't give me away. Your husband is the boss. He would definitely kick me out. He won't trust me. I won't say a word. I'll find a way to give him a taste of his own medicine. Thank you so much. Finding a job with a decent salary is quite challenging. I totally understand. It took me a while to secure one too. How do I manage it, you ask? Well, I dash to the store right after work to grab groceries, and then I dance around the kitchen for at least an hour, sometimes even 3, to whip up a delicious feast. And let me tell you, I know I'm a darn good cook. Indeed, your dishes," Jack confessed with a guilty smile. "I wouldn't give them to just anyone. It's the most disheartening thing. I absolutely adore cooking. It brings me pure joy, and yet I wouldn't put in so much effort for just any man. Oh, you're one lucky fella. I, on the other hand, can barely cook a thing. The extent of my culinary skills is frying potatoes or scrambling eggs. Maybe boiling dumplings. It's so much easier for you women. Gender doesn't really matter, my friend. Anyone can learn how to cook if they put their mind to it," Penelope declared confidently, grabbing a slice of cake. "Would you like me to teach you?" Jack should have declined, but the mere thought of Penelope in his kitchen was irresistible. "I do. Where should we begin? How about the lasagna you wanted to make today? Or is it too complicated?" "It's not complicated if you have the right kitchen tools. Let's go out and get everything we need. I'm just renting an apartment, so all I have is a pot, a pan, and a few plates. By the way, does the oven work?" "I reckon so. There's a fancy electric oven in there. Will it do the trick?" Penelope chimed in, all cheerful like, polishing off the final morsel of her cake and rising from her seat. Nathan arrived back home, only to be greeted by a dim and serene apartment. He ventured through the rooms, yet his wife was nowhere to be found. Just as he was about to holler for her, the sound of a key turning in the lock caught his ears. "Where have you been?" he inquired, catching sight of the time. "Oh, my apologies, my love. A colleague from work asked for my help in mastering the art of lasagna. I paid her a visit." "Lasagna?" My hubby was taken aback. It was one of those dishes he had an outright weakness for. He wouldn't even share a bite of it with Luke at the office when his wife whipped it up. "What's on my dinner plate then?" "I bought some boiled sausage. I'll fry the eggs. You like it, don't you?" Nathan wrinkled his nose. He really wanted lasagna. "All right. I'm gonna go rinse my hands." He grumbled a bit as he uttered those words. Penelope was visibly content, yet he scarcely noticed. In contrast, she thoroughly enjoyed the evening she spent in Jack's company. Initially, they splashed out on essential kitchenware and food supplies, then headed to his abode. No, nothing improper occurred. She merely guided him through the intricacies of crafting a perfect, quick lasagna. He attentively adhered to her directions, earning himself a sumptuous meal, which he graciously shared with her. Any leftovers were neatly packed away by him for his lunch at work the next day. Following their meal, she made a beeline for home, constantly checking her watch. She aimed to arrive before her husband, but a snarl-up delayed her, making her slightly tardy. Meanwhile, Nathan had settled for a simple meal of scrambled eggs and sausage, and soon after reclined in front of the television, where he promptly dozed off. Penelope usually roused him when she headed to bed, but not this evening. She harbored a grudge. She thought, let him suffer a sore back in the morning, a just reward for enduring the awful sofa his mother had selected. Come morning, Nathan, sticking to routine, enjoyed coffee and a chocolate muffin before preparing for work. Typically, he'd find his lunch neatly packed by Penelope, but today she just sat applying her makeup, acting as if the day was like any other. "Did you prepare anything for lunch?" he asked. Penelope feigned shock. "Oh, I'm sorry, darling, it slipped my mind. Normally there's leftovers, but you wouldn't fancy taking eggs, right? Maybe grab something at the cafeteria today, eh?" "Sure thing," he responded, slightly baffled, not quite recognizing his usually doting wife, who was always fussing about, plucking stray cat hairs off his jacket from their cat, aptly named Cat. "Am I off then?" "Sure, catch you later. See you tonight," she quipped, without bothering to rise for a farewell kiss. Nathan couldn't help but feel even more surprised, yet he brushed it off, thinking she was probably just in a rush to get to work. Similarly, when Jack had grabbed a container of lasagna for lunch, he didn't pay much attention to it either. The thought of it being connected to his wife didn't even cross his mind. "Whoa, decided to cheat on your sandwiches," Luke chirped with a cheerful tone. "Hell yeah, I'm treating myself like royalty today," Jack responded. "Did you buy it?" Nathan asked, his mouth watering at the aroma. "Nah, I cooked it myself. A buddy showed me the ropes," Jack proudly confessed. "Wow, making new pals already. Good on ya," Luke praised. "Although cooking ain't exactly a man's domain, is it?" "I beg to differ. If it means I get to eat like this, I'd gladly learn," Jack objected. "You should tie the knot," Nathan interjected. "Ha, so you can't eat your cheap noodles every day?" Jack teased him. "By the way, my dear Penelope had a breakdown today. I am utterly famished with no lunch in sight. What shall you devour?" "The usual, my dear pal," Nathan responded, feeling somewhat downcast. "Why the lack of cheer? I cannot fathom. It's rather unfamiliar. Today, for some reason, the steamed noodles refused to cooperate, especially when Nathan observed Jack relishing his lasagna. After supper, he messaged his wife, I yearn for lasagna. Will you prepare it? No guarantees. I have extracurricular obligations today, she simply replied. Nathan felt a tinge of disappointment. Normally, his wife granted all his desires. Something was definitely amiss. Upon returning home, he discovered Penelope absent once again. This time, she was delayed by half an hour. She arrived home with such contentment and joy, not at all weary from work as he had anticipated. Why the long delay? I was prepared to gnaw the table out of hunger, he protested. Why so? The table is hardly delectable. You could have whipped up some eggs and sausages for yourself. Again? Not again, but most certainly again. Fine, I shall prepare them myself. I fancy no eggs. Then let's make some cereal. Oh my God, we're out of cereal. How would you like to eat some potatoes? No, I'm exhausted, and it takes forever. Why are you pestering me like a little kid? Nathan decided not to argue with his wife. While he was tidying up his face and hands, she had already set the table. The omelette was delicious, of course, but it was getting monotonous. All the more reason to try lasagna. It's been almost 2 weeks. Penelope decided not to bother cooking because her husband did not appreciate her efforts. She no longer cooked his lunches, but for dinner she made him suffer from overly pickled scrambled eggs and dumplings, which Nathan could no longer look at. Well, a couple of times she took pity and fried potatoes, but intentionally undersalted or oversalted them, so that he would feel uncomfortable. During this time, she managed to teach Jack how to cook many different dishes. They met almost every day and became close friends. Of course, Penelope noticed that his interest in her was somewhat different from her own, but she didn't pay much attention to it. One day she visited him again, but not alone, but with her friend Evelyn. Meet Evelyn, please welcome her warmly, she cheerfully announced, and her friend fluttered her eyelashes like she was trying to take flight. Of course, Evelyn had heard Penelope's stories about her new acquaintance, but she had no idea that he was so attractive and available. Jack was taken aback by the unexpected turn of events, but it didn't bother him at all, except for a slight feeling of surprise. Well, you were eager to learn how to cook pilaf, right? Well, I have brought you the absolute best teacher. A pilaf is simply divine and drives everyone crazy with delight. Penelope stayed with them for another 5 minutes before suddenly remembering some very important matters and hastily making her exit. She had no intentions of being disloyal to her husband, which is why she had carefully devised a plan of action beforehand. By doing so, she ensured the wolves were fed and the sheep were kept safe. Besides, how long can Evelyn stay unmarried? Jack is an excellent match for a husband after all. The following day, Jack arrived with a box filled with the heavenly aroma of pilaf for lunch. His friends were no longer surprised by his culinary prowess, although they would often jest at his expense. However, this time he managed to catch them off guard. I'm getting hitched, he announced joyfully. The boys couldn't help but exclaim in unison already. Jack replied, yes, I found my soulmate. I've never tasted pilaf as remarkable as hers in my entire life. Nathan chimed in with a grin, retrieving his own container. My lasagna tastes even better. At last, Penelope relented and prepared her husband a sumptuous meal. Luke moistened his lips and inquired hopefully, any chance you'd share? Not on your life, scarf down your own noodles. Or better yet, find yourself a wife like Jack did. Nathan retorted with a mischievous grin. His yearning for Penelope's homemade dishes was so intense, he had no intention of offering any to his pal. Her culinary secrets were such that even upon initially encountering Jack at his union with Evelyn, she hadn't spilled the beans to her spouse. Did you finally set her straight? Jack whispered conspiratorially once they were out of earshot. Never rile up a lady, she responded with a lively chuckle and a beaming smile.